Hello everyone, and welcome to this Uska News Water News video podcast. In November 2016, the first Global Water Stewardship Forum met in Scotland, the Hydro Nation, convened by the Alliance for Water Stewardship. Experts from more than 20 countries met in sunny Edinburgh for 2 full days with representatives from governments, large and small corporations, NGOs, finance and civil society. The forum was designed to advance global understanding and impacts of water stewardship and contribute to the further development of the global AWS Water Stewardship Standard. Uska News reported on the forum, and I had an opportunity to speak to several key participants. Welcome, Chris Brown. Can you take a few moments initially to tell the viewers of this video who you are and what brought you to Edinburgh this week for this forum?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, David. So I'm Chris Brown. I'm Vice President of Corporate Responsibility and Sustainability in Olam International. So Olam is a global agribusiness. We're what's called vertically integrated, but actually that means that we work with farmers. So we're connected to about 4 million smallholder farmers and 20,000 large-scale farmers. We have our own farms and plantations, so things like coffee, and we have about 2.8 million hectares of land under management. So other things like timber as well, where we have the largest FSC certified tropical hardwood plantation globally. We have processing plants, so we have getting on for 200 processing plants globally. And we source and trade a range of other agricultural commodities. So the products that we do are things like coffee, I mentioned, cocoa, rice, sugar, timber, edible nuts like cashew nuts, peanuts, hazelnuts, the list goes on. So we're a business-to-business company, and most of the products that we supply you will have consumed at some point in time. I think 1 in 8 chocolate bars, the cocoa for that comes from Olam, as an example. So we've a leading global position in most of the products that we supply, and all of the big name brands will most likely be customers of ours.
And some water-thirsty crops.
Yeah, I mean crops by their very nature consume water. So agriculture consumes about 70% of all available fresh water globally. So water is an issue for agriculture. It's one of the key raw materials, one of the key inputs for the business. Without it, the crops just don't exist. So the business just doesn't exist. Therefore, it's important for us. So we grow a range of crops. There's almonds, which has got a lot of press across in California of late. Almonds actually are produced using high technology irrigation, looking at soil moisture, analysing the pollination pattern of bees. So real high-tech operation, but they're produced in certain areas of the world, like many crops, because climatic conditions, soil conditions are conducive to the production of those crops. We produce sugar in India, where we're working with 20,000 sugar farmers, smallholder sugar farmers in Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, who in turn feed our 2 sugar mills. So we have a dependency on the smallholder farmer. So it's in our interest to make them as efficient as possible, as resilient as possible for the challenges that they face. And that's social as well as environmental, to make sure that we build long-term sustainable supply chains such that we have security in our business for those assets, be it a farm, a supply chain, a processing plant. So investments that could be 20, 30, 40-year long investments. So we want peace of mind and security that those investments will continue for the duration. So we need to make sure that the stakeholders with whom we work are going to be there for the long run as well.
Responsible water stewardship is part of a lifeblood for a company like Olam.
Yeah, very much so. And I think many years most companies, be that in agriculture or energy production or car manufacturing, all sectors that I've got experience in, have focused on driving efficiency in their operations. And that's great. It means you get your own house in order. But actually, water's a very local issue. It's not like greenhouse gas emissions, which can be very much sort of aggregated globally. You're reliant on the water being produced local to where your operations are. So you have a relationship with the source of that water and the other users of that water in the area around you, and also can impact on that water source or be impacted on by virtue of waste going into that water as well. So it's absolutely critical that business starts to look not just within its perimeter fence, but outside, and start to understand how is water being used more widely, how do we use water responsibly, and within those constraints that exist in terms of its supply, its quality, and the plans for development within those areas in which we operate as well. So there are so many constraints now that we need to understand more effectively and be able to factor that into how we operate. So efficiency in own operation isn't enough anymore. For long-term, as I say, long-term sustainable supply chains and operations, you've got to understand at a much broader landscape level, at a water catchment level.
There does seem to be a positive awareness trajectory of the need for responsible water stewardship beyond the more obvious water users, and you spoke of your experience in other non-agri sectors. How does one accelerate closure of the knowledge gap in a less obvious but still water-dependent industry? How do you get the C-suite decision makers to think of water as more than CSR, but as that water stewardship is a business imperative?
Yeah.
How do you educate them?
I think for agriculture again, we're quite fortunate. It's understanding your inputs is relatively easy. For a company like Olam, who is close to the point of production, if you're a brand, a consumer-facing brand, then you're several steps removed from how your material is being produced at farm level. We have the luxury, it could be a double-edged sword of course, but we have the luxury of being able to understand where those materials come from, what the barriers to producing that are, and be able to communicate that through the C-suite to say, in these areas there exists certain levels of risk. So we can have that straightforward communication based on our inputs and what's happening within those areas, what future climate scenarios might be, what the potential risks to our business could be going forward. And just in, I think it was August this year, our board, our CRNS, Corporate Responsibility and Sustainability Board Committee, had asked me to prepare a paper on water. So they came to me saying, hey, we want to know more about this. We're building our knowledge on it over the years. We want to understand more. Where are the challenges? What does it mean to our business? So it's not just pushing. We're being pulled now from the C-suite. So they're realising the absolute importance of water for our business, for productivity, and also for the continuing livelihoods of the farmers involved in our supply chains. So again, our long-term future is inextricably linked with those farmer producers. So we've got to maintain those supply chains for our security going forward. We want to be here for the long term. We're only a young business. We're 26, 27 years old. We want to be here for many, many years to come. We want to build an enduring business. So water is one of the foundation stones of being able to build that enduring business.
And finally, we're almost at the end of the inaugural Global Water Stewardship Forum. What are your takeaway impressions of this week? Has it been helpful for you and worth the journey?
Yeah, I mean, it's always worth the journey to Edinburgh. It's a fantastic city. But I guess just over 2 years ago, April 2014, the AWS, the Alliance for Water Stewardship Standard, was launched globally. So that was launched in Lima, in Peru. So I was at the launch and saw something in it and realised that the needs of OLAM and what I was being asked to do by the business, there was a synergy between that and the AWS standard. So for the last two and a bit years, we've been working hard on understanding what the standard means for OLAM and how to implement. So we've just recently become the first agribusiness globally and the first African business to achieve AWS certification. So we're amazingly proud of that, and it's credit to the teams on the ground. So I was a guy who went down maybe 3 years ago and started the ball rolling. They've delivered this, they've executed this, and they've done this because they've seen value in it. They've seen business value in this. So to be able to come here to Edinburgh and convey my experiences and the experiences of my colleagues has been fantastic to help stimulate others on this journey, and also hear from the experience of other people, because there are things that we've learned, obviously. There are things that we need to refine. There's new people coming to the table with fresh ideas, so we're trying to build, broaden and scale up the uptake of the AWS standard. We see a need for stewardship. Like I say, efficiency isn't enough, so we've got to build stewardship approaches to be able to build that enduring business that I spoke about, and those enduring communities also that I was speaking about earlier.